I think it's difficult to get back to our normal way of living without making some comments and giving some insight and direction concerning what happened on Lag BaOmer. Literally a massacre. 45 people dying. After Pesach last year, because we were in the middle of the epidemic of Corona, I started sending out videos in English, every week. It was called Devarim Hayotzim Min Halev. And in the first talk, I spoke about this Corona epidemic. And since it was just after Pesach that we started, and that's really when we started becoming aware of what's happening in the world. And that's really the time when the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva perished in a plague called Askara, which the Rishonim explain that they were dying, that they couldn't breathe. They died because they couldn't breathe. That's Askara. So I thought it's Corona, Askara. So although that was a general epidemic which affected the whole world, not only Jews, and certainly not only Haredim, even so I felt it has something to do with our situation, the situation of the Haredim, and I'll explain myself. Hashem created the world for Israel and the Torah. And everything that happens in the world generally is because of Israel and the Torah. We are Baalei Behira, full Behira. The nations of the world have freedom of choice to either to convert and become full Jews, or to remain Goyim and keep the 7 mitzvot of Bnei Noach, where they have an option in the world to come, as the Rambam says, and Ramchal quotes him. But really those who are running the world, as they say, like the Nefesh HaHaim explains in Perek Aleph Ubet of Shar Aleph, that Hashem created us B'Tselem Elokim, and he says, why was this name Elokim used and not Havaya? So he says, as we see in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Hey, Elokim means Takiv Ba'al HaKochot Ve'echolot Kulam, that Hashem runs the world. He's the Almighty, the All-Powerful, who runs all the forces in the world. Nothing is beyond His control. Nature, the zodiacs, whatever. Everything is under the control of Hashem. He controls the whole world. And this He showed to us, to the Egyptians, to the world, in Yetziat Mitzrayim. He turned the whole world upside down. All the accepted rules of nature were turned upside down. I said at the time that the timing of this plague and the way it affects people and kills them because of lack of breathing, it would appear that it has something to do with the students of Rabbi Akiva who perished at this time between Pesach and Lag BaOmer. And we know, the Gemara says, that they were punished because lo nahagu kavod zeh lezeh. They were not respecting one another. The Arizal says, sonim umkanterim zeh zeh. They were hating and like fighting with one another. Obviously, they were not fighting over, ice cream and pita falafel. They were fighting over their opinions in Torah, but in a way which there was a lot of ego involved. That's the only explanation we can give. And we know that then and now there is a lot of contention, a lot of argument within the Haredi Kehillah in Am Yisrael. The old mahloket between the Chassidim and Litvish, this really in a way is carrying on. It never stopped. Maybe it's sometimes on a lower key, sometimes blown up, but it's always there. And then within the sects also, between, I don't want to be mekatreg, I'm speaking divrei musar. Kitrug is only when you speak before Hashem and say, look at your people, how they're sinning, they're doing this, that's kitrug. But if we say over criticism of situations, al-menat that we should learn how to improve and repair these situations, so it's nothing to do with kitrug. That's musar, that's meant to be said, and we have to say it clearly, and so that we'll all understand what the message is. Okay, till just before Pesach of last year, more or less the Olam HaTorah of the Yeshivot were united. Then, even there, they became a machloket. That's very serious. So I said, I spoke in a few places that, in my humble opinion, this is what we have to work on, Ahavat Israel. And unfortunately, when you have these type of contentions and arguments between different kehilot, so the what suffers most is emunat hachamim, because the people who belong to this side can speak about the rabbis on the other side, and the people from this side will speak about the rabbis on the other side, and there's no more emunat hachamim. So all the younger generation are growing up without emunat hachamim. This rabbi is no good, and that rabbi is no good, and there's a heter to speak. You see it all over. Unfortunately, we see it all over. What once used to be that everyone had covered the Torah and love for rabbis and respect for rabbis. All of a sudden, from this side they're tearing the posters, the pictures of this rabbi, and the other side tearing the pictures and the posters of this side, and worse. Doesn't end there. So this Sinat Hinam led to Bizayon Torah, Bizayon Gedolim, which is the most serious thing. Once we don't, there's no law and order by us, meaning we don't listen to Gedolim, then really there's no hope. If we don't accept Hanhagat Gedolim, there's no hope. And everything becomes a machloket and a shitta. Yes, to wear a mask, not to wear a mask. This became a big, a big machloket in the Haredi world. The most stupid things can become a reason for arguing. Baruch Hashem, we've been, Ahavat Shalom is almost 50 years old. Tens of thousands of Talmidei Hachamim over the years learned in Ahavat Shalom. That's not an exaggeration. V'zocheh to megadol Torah. And I think, Kishma Kenhu, Ahavat Shalom, we try to be in that outlook of Ahavat Israel. It's based on, many droshas I said, now is not the time. The Ari himself died from a machloket of his Talmidim at the age of 38. And the Rashash, who founded the Beit El Yeshiva in the old city, made shtar kashrut. Him and his students signed a secret agreement of sholem, loving one another, caring for another one, taking care of each other's families if one dies, everything. It's all detailed. And all the Gedolei Yerushalayim signed on these charters. It's about almost 300 years ago. And it was called Hevrat Ahavat Shalom. That's why we call the yeshiva Hevrat Ahavat Shalom. Without the shtarot, we're not on the level, but at least to know that, like Rabbi Akiva said, ואהבת רעך כמוך זה כלל גדול בתורה. He didn't say, זה דבר חשוב מאוד. No, כלל גדול בתורה. קיום התורה depends on this. When the 24,000 died each one of them had a helek from Rabbi Akiva's Torah. Rabbi Akiva's Torah was vast, unending. On the Kitrei Torah, on the Tagim itself, the Medrash Otiyot, the Rabbi Akiva says, he darshaned on each tag 375 Hidushei Halachot. So we can work out today how many tagim there are in the Torah, and then multiply them, 365. So probably we're going to get many, many, many thousands, maybe 10,000s, tens of thousands of Hidushei Dinim just on the tagim. But obviously Rabbi Akiva didn't spend his day and night just looking at the tagim. If on the tagim he said tens of thousands of Hidushei Dinim, so for sure on the Otiyot he said 100,000. And for sure on the words he said 1 million. And for sure on the Psukim he said 10 million. And on the Parashiyot, 100 million, a billion. All of this he gave over to his Talmidim. When they died, Vaya Olam Shamim. The world was desolate, nothing left in the world, no light. Rabbi Akiva took 5 new students, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Nehemiah, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, and gave them smicha. What's Lag BaOmer about? It says in Shara Kavanot very clearly, it's only about one thing. On this day, the 5 students got smicha. So it's a day of Kiyum Torah. The world was saved by these 5. Like the Gemara says, Stam Mishnah, Stam Braita, Stam Aliba Dezeh. These 5 students, Safra, Sifri, Tosefta, Bikulhu Aliba Rabbi Akiva, and this is the whole oral tradition that we have today. Only from these 5 rabbis and the Torah of Rabbi Akiva. So we can imagine what that means. And what a great day it was. And the Ari says this is why it was instated as a day of Simha. It's Simchat Torah because of the endorsement of these 5 students who received the Torah and were b'shalom and transmitted Torah to the other generation. In one of the prints of Pirei Etz Chaim, the word Yom Simchat Rashbi, the chet was not printed, and it says Yom Shemet Rashbi. And this led many people think it's his Yortzeit, and it's okay. In Ashkenaz, they only had this print, and many Gedolim also taught like that. But in the, wherever they had the Shmona Sha'arim, which were not in many places, very limited, it was not printed till the year Tafresh. Middle of Tafresh, they started printing, let's say, Shara Kavanot. Until then, it was very limited. Hardly anyone saw it. So this concept of Yom Ptira, Yortzeit, and then it was taken to another stage, that Yortzeit all of a sudden became a Hilula. And this is totally against the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says Yom Ptirat HaTzadik, Yom Ta'anit, it's a sad day, not a happy day. All right, but there's a lot of money involved. All those who have bus companies, or all other things like that, the the Rotel, the High Rotel, and the Kupor. It's been going on for years. It's a big business involved. That is Hilula, and the gatherings and sales, of all sorts of things on very high prices. Okay, let's say it's going for mitzvahs. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's changing the whole concept. As I wrote in my tshuva, even the concept of doing the halakha dafka on Lag BaOmer and at Méron is wrong. There's no such thing. The source of the custom is to do it at the grave of a tzaddik. And they used to do it in Shmuel HaNovi, in Shimon HaTzadik. And Ari happened to go there for the simcha of Rashbi, which is Yom HaSmicha. So he had his son, was 7 years old. He did halakha. Even the concept of 3 and Orla, these are all Hasidic customs which have become like a halacha.